I'm going to tell you...
Howard, from movie fans everywhere, and I'm one of them, thanks.
Thank you, dude.
Hello and welcome everyone, this is Tacozilla, and today's video is on John Wayne and Howard Hawks' projects ranks. Now John Wayne, obviously one of the most prolific Western stars of all time. I think he is synonymous with the Western genre and is also one of the most recognizable names in all of cinema. And obviously Clint Eastwood was someone who tried to rival, I guess, the prominence within the genre. But I think now that we've seen close to the end of Clint Eastwood's acting career and have some time away from, his most prolific films and especially westerns, I think the Western icon has to go to John Wayne. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Of the 5 films, I want to start from number 5 and work our way up to the best collaboration. And I should say for fans of Western type movies, and this is a movie that came out kind of near the swan song of Hawks' career and John Wayne's career. And obviously, there's a lot of examples of both actors and directors putting on great spectacles near the end of their career. And unfortunately, this was not Hawks' best effort from what I've seen so far. Now, I gave this a 3 out of 5, which means it's still a good film and not bad by any means. One that I don't regret seeing for sure, but one that has not been seen a whole lot on Letterboxd. Some of my problems with this movie is that it felt too bloated to be paced well enough to thoroughly enjoy. I watched this on Plex, and I mentioned this in my Letterboxd review, that this definitely compounded the problem, but I do think the script does play a good part. The final third of this movie, which I think saves it from being a average or worse movie, is the best part, and it includes, or I should better say, injects the movie with more charisma from one in particular character, Jack Elam, who is a character to say the least. But for the first 2/3, it feels like the movie heavily relies on John Wayne, which most movies that do include him have to. I mean, he's always the most charismatic person in his films, or at least in my opinion. So that's not out of the ordinary, but it didn't feel like there was other characters to really bounce the story off of. Altogether, it was an interesting story, but in my mind, could have been told more efficiently, which would have benefited the movie. Coming in at number 4, we have Hatari. This is a very unique and interesting film. Not only is it above Rio Lobo, but I also would be way more... I would definitely recommend this above Rio Lobo. Despite them having the same rating, I would definitely lean towards this one. Part of the reason is most other people seem to enjoy this a lot more than I do, where it has an average rating of a 3.6 on Letterboxd, whereas Rio Lobo's is a 3.3. But also, it's very interesting from the perspective of what Hawks was actually able to capture, which would be very difficult to capture, and is why it is so unique, I feel. And that is actual shots in the safari with safari wildlife. So intense action-packed scenes that are generally difficult to capture that were captured very, very well. And I think this shows off a lot of the skill that Hawks has. This was another example of, I think, Hawks trying to do too much. And as we get towards the top of the list, I think you'll be able to see that when he is more focused in his storytelling, it seems to benefit the story as a whole a lot more. With a lot of subplots being kind of crammed into the movie, for a lack of a better term, it does lose its focus and also begins to overstay its welcome. The movie is over 150 minutes, and the movie would have felt a lot tighter if it was 2 hours, or maybe even less than that. The next movie that we're going to talk about is Red River.
Up until Red River, John Wayne was a very likable, reliable, good-natured leading man. After Red River, he started playing much more tough, acerbic, rough characters.
I will say I think this is probably right in the prime of the career of both Hawks and Wayne, the 1948 black and white movie about a cattle drive. This one was really, really interesting because it has both kind of those iconic animal scenes that Hatari did so well, but it matches it with humanistic scenes about relationships between characters that we become rather invested in. And that is ultimately what delineates Hawks' other projects from his great projects, in my mind, is where you gain that investment in the actual characters so that it has something to offset those really, really great scenes. And this is something that I want to say here, because there are directors, and I mention this director, and it feels like just about every other video I create, but Akira Kurosawa is a great one, where it's these grand shots that make you think, how is this created? And you know, a lot of people have said how Kurosawa was deeply impacted and influenced from the likes of John Ford. And I would like to say, I think that either Hawks was also inspired by John Ford, or maybe Hawks was also in the watch list or the playlist of an Akira Kurosawa, because I can see those shots being done at such an early time period that it feels like they could have very well inspired him as well. But this is a great story. John Wayne is as good as ever. His performance is never lacking in all of the 5 films that I've seen. I've done a deeper analysis on this. It's actually on my channel, this along with El Dorado. So if you want to really deep dive into that, please subscribe to the channel and check out that video, as I think you'll really enjoy it. But this is a great film as far as I'm concerned. If you're looking for a film to maybe start with for Howard Hawks or even John Wayne, this I think is a pretty good recommendation. The next film, number 2 on the list, is El Dorado.
There's a little question unanswered between us.
Which one of us is best?
This I also gave a 4 out of 5, and it has some real name power in it. We have John Wayne, but also Robert Mitchum and James Caan. And the chemistry amongst the three really makes this film. Again, you have the shootout scenes, you have these action-esque scenes, and you know the ending is a great Western ending. But the beef of this movie, or the meat of this movie that actually makes it a great film, is not only how pretty a picture it is, but like literally visually, I think this is a very clean picture, and it's part of the aesthetic that I enjoy so much. Check out the Technicolor and Eastman color video to see my appreciation for that. But it's the chemistry amongst the really great actors in this film and how they bounce off each other. Ultimately, that's what makes the film. And suffice to say, I really enjoyed it. For a deeper dive, again, check out the podcast I did on Red River and El Dorado. But that leaves us with just one film at number one. And of course, it is Rio Bravo.
Guess I'll take that drink now, Charlie.
I thought you would.
I kind of asked this question myself, and I'm not alone in rating this higher than El Dorado. But there's obviously a number of similarities, honestly, from a drunken, man of law trying to find his way back to what he was before, the actual setting itself, and aesthetically how it looks. Rio Bravo is very similar to El Dorado. And even, I think, when it comes to, holding up a criminal and then having to have a gunfight at the end for keeps, as you would say. It's a similar premise. It looks very similar. But for whatever reason, this film just resonated with me more, and I enjoyed the whole ride. And it's kind of weird in that, this has Dean Martin, acclaimed musician and TV actor, movie actor, who, on a scale, between him and Robert Mitchum, you could easily argue Robert Mitchum and James Caan bring more talent to the screen. But this film doesn't suffer from any of that because the chemistry is good enough between all of the protagonists to where it doesn't feel lacking and is able to keep up with El Dorado from that standpoint. It's a very pretty film. I greatly enjoy it. And my personal feelings was maybe it just, I finally had Hawks's style kind of sink in with me for me to be able to, most appreciate it with this one. But the fact that other people also kind of feel like this is one of Hawks's best westerns does make me feel like there is just some movie magic to this one that really there is a masterpiece in our hands whenever we watch this one. And this would definitely be one of the westerns that I would most recommend for someone wanting to dip into the genre, because if you're part of my generation, it really might not have been something you grew up with. I know I really didn't grow up much with westerns, but this is one of probably the top 10 that I've seen of the genre so far. And John Wayne is in at least a few that are really, really great. He is, in my opinion, one of the utmost iconic Western heroes, and he is able to hold any scene that he's in together. And there is, I think, maybe some argument that he's not a great actor, because he plays very similar versions of himself from film to film. But I do want to argue from the perspective that he carries this era or aura of confidence and masculinity and self-assuredness that makes him a great protagonist for these very masculine driven films. And that doesn't mean you have to be a male to enjoy these films. I don't think that's true by any marks, but he gives a male role model through film, honestly, and a very good one at that. So I think Hawks has a tremendous fingerprint in both westerns and film in general, and Same goes for John Wayne. This was really fun to actually get to watch all 5 of these films, and I hope you had just as much fun watching these videos. I hope you get some recommendations out of this, and I also want to hear your thoughts down below. If you've seen any of these films and you have a different opinion from mine, please let me know. And while you're at it, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. I greatly appreciate it. And with all that being said, I will catch you on the flippity floop. Bye, y'all.